This conversation is going to be all about parking in Gibsons, BC, how it affects residential, commercial, and also tourists.
This is maybe the most exciting topic we've ever had.
Let's talk about parking.
I know for ourselves, parking at the condo complex where we live, it's always in high demand. Mm-hmm. Every unit gets one stall, and then there's a bunch of visitor stalls, but I think everybody would love to have at least another stall, so 2 stalls, but we don't have that much parking, so we try and make do with what we've got. And I think that that's something that kind of, there's a similar story playing out in other condo complexes, on city streets, on just anywhere that you're going to park a car on the Sunshine Coast.
Mm-hmm. Well, and about our condo, some places, some of our townhouses have garages. So then they technically have one spot in the garage and then one spot outside on the garage pad.
Right.
So then they have 2 and then the rest visitor, yeah. But definitely in high demand. And then a lot of the complexes have decided that they can rent out a few of their visitor stalls to some of the homeowners for $100 to $150 a month or whatever it is, so that, people with an extra vehicle are okay in that way. But then you can't take away too many from visitor, because then that's a problem.
Well, and that's kind of what's happening around town too, right? Is that a lot of businesses want variances to have less parking. Developers are asking for variances for less parking for their developments, but then we're seeing more and more street parking, especially in Lower Gibsons. I really notice it. And usually this time of year, we're recording at the end of September right now. Usually by this time, summer's kind of done, and the town is quieting down a little bit again. But I know, like when we go down to Lower Gibsons, like especially like in the evenings or on the weekend, every parking spot down there, all the way to the post office is filled up. Like parking's in high demand.
Yeah, all along Gower Point Road, there across Weingarten Park, that whole spot is full all the time. And so our summer tourist season, that's when we get really busy with parking, but now that's extending. Like it's going to extend into October, and then it's going to start in like April instead of May long weekend. So our tourist season is lasting longer, creating even more of a parking problem, because we've basically been in a parking deficit in Gibsons for quite a few years now already, like even without tourists.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, because it's so annoying. Okay, maybe we're fine in December, January. Maybe like
December,
2 months.
You'd have lots of people coming to spend the holidays on the coast, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that even December gets a little bit, I remember, I think it was last year, we thought we were going to go to the city and we're going to have a fun little day in the city exploring. And so we went to Deep Cove, and we had never been to Deep Cove before, but we'd heard lots of good things. And we were kind of smug about the parking because we had to park so far away in Deep Cove.
1 mile away from like the little busy
strip where everybody wants to go hang out and around their little waterfront. It was really well organized, right? But you parked a long way away, and we kind of smugly thought, well, we don't have to park this far away in Gibsons. But now, like just a little bit more than a year later, we're like, that it's maybe not as extreme now on the coast as it was in Deep Cove. But like, I think we're a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years away from that. Like it just seems to be getting exponentially busier every year with parking.
And where will that parking be created? Because like Deep Cove did have that flatter surface a little ways away that you could walk 20 minutes. But then where are we going to put that when we run out of room near Weingarten Park, which we already are?
Yeah, it's pretty steep. Like if you've never been to Lower Gibsons, then it's a pretty big march up School Road to get to the top of the hill. And even up there, there's not like oodles of space to park, right? Like it's not that getting you up there solves that problem, but it's all uphill if you're adding parking. I guess the town of Gibsons could build a funicular. Yeah.
No, the parkade thing. We've talked a little bit about this. A big, ugly parkade. I know. It sounds terrible, but like we seriously need it to get ahead of this parking problem. And then we're trying to think, okay, where? But where the School District 46 building is, so in the hall and lands where the municipal hall is, there's a big grass part on the hill. Mm-hmm. Stick a parkade in there, 6-story parkade. So it would be like, I don't know, 3-4 stories to level to
Gower
South
Point Road,
Fletcher, and then to South Fletcher, and then maybe 2 stories up. So it's not like people would lose their view above because it is so steep in that area. And put a big parkade.
Yeah, I kind of don't know what else the other solution is, because there's just really not like individual spaces in Gibsons to claw back, right? There's only so many streets you can park on. I know in bigger centers that have this issue with parking, the locals start to, scream about it. So then all of a sudden you need a permit to park on the street. So then you lose that street parking. And are you going to start expropriating homes to build parking lots? That seems like a pretty pricey endeavor. And then if in the extreme you'd say, I guess we're going to shuttle people to Lower Gibsons, but then, which is good and fine, but where do you put them?
Shuttle them from Upper Gibsons, and where in Upper Gibsons, and now you're going to man a shuttle bus. But I know this sounds extreme, but we have this problem already about parking. And so we have to be planning and thinking ahead and having this conversation, because we're talking about a whole bunch more developments, like even going around Stonehurst, Billy's Walk or something like that, where you're going to have a whole bunch more building up of residential, and where you're going to put all these people's parking, because we're going to give variance on their parking there too. We're going to say, I don't know, you only need not even 1.2 per building. Maybe you'll say 0.9. But these people have extra vehicles. And so...
Well, and I don't even call them extra vehicles.
No.
It's, I think a lot of people, if you've got two adults or a family, living in a residential unit, whether that's a condo or a house or anything in between, typically you have two vehicles. If both adults work, even if there's one adult that works, then the other person, if they're looking after home, running errands, looking after kids, that kind of thing, they need another vehicle. So really, I think the bare minimum you need for a residential unit is 2 parking stalls to go with each unit. Yeah,
with 2 bedrooms for sure, and even the 1 bedrooms, because you could have couples in 1 bedrooms. And so right now we're a lot focused on density, which I'm fine with that. But the thing we have to think about density also is that not only building a lot more suites on top of each other and around each other, but the people inside. There's going to be more density within. So you're not going to have just a single person. You're going to have a couple living in there because that's what they can afford. You're going to have a couple and their adult kid living in the 2 bedroom because that's what they can afford. So that's part of the density too. So then they need parking, because not everybody has a job that they can just walk or transit. Well, yeah, we'll get into transit, but a lot of jobs you need a vehicle. We're rural here on the Sunshine Coast. You're going up and you're going to the mill, you're a tourist job, you're BC ferries, you're working up coast to Seashell, you're a tradesperson, so many jobs, you have your own little business, you need a vehicle. You can't just be riding your bike or taking transit. That doesn't go often enough. And our transit system, yes, they want to try, but then they don't have enough help and funding from the province, and they can't grow fast enough so that we can just totally rely on transit. Honestly, I think we're 40 years away from relying on transit.
The transit on the Sunshine Coast, I think it's a little bit of, it's almost like a bonus, because it's such a small community. To think, we have a bus, even if it runs every 2 hours, is pretty nice. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people, and I still, 30 years later, I still don't think there's a bus there. So it's pretty nice that we've got this. But I don't think we can count on it to deal with additional density like Vancouver does. Vancouver's got SkyTrains and buses every 10 minutes and that kind of thing. And I don't think that realistically we can say we're going to waive parking because public transit will pick up that slack when there's a bus that runs every 2-ish hours.
My big concern is parking problem just getting worse and worse with more development and more increased housing. And the thing is, we want these houses, we want these developments that are coming in to be practical for the situation of the lifestyle of the people that are going to be in it. And so we don't want neighbors fighting against each other because there's not enough parking. And we don't want the people to have to park 2 blocks away to walk to their home because they have an extra vehicle, but they don't have a spot for it. So we really have to think about what's practical here and put the parking. And it's going to be a little bit more expensive to make room for those extra parking or that extra parkade on site. But even if you got to give up 2 suites, we need to find that balance between adding a lot of density and making it livable and enjoyable and practical and normal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's obviously a housing shortage here, and that, we're in Gibsons, so we speak mostly about Gibsons, that council is really focused on doing everything they can to add housing stock right as quickly as possible. And I think developers maybe realize that there's a lot of urgency from the town. And so I think one of the first things they start asking for is forgiveness on parking, when, as you're pointing out, it's almost should be going the other way.
Yes.
That we're in a deficit position already. And to say every unit has to have 2 parking stalls, that just holds us where we're at now. I don't know what the solution is. I know that the parkade, we're weird that we kind of think that that's the perfect thing to go down in Lower Gibsons, with it'll be the parkade with the best view in Western Canada. But I kind of don't know what other solutions there are other than the town somehow coming up with a whole bunch of parking someplace and really insisting that developers, at least at the bare minimum, stick to the minimum parking requirements for new developments.
100%. That ugly parkade, put a mural around it.
Yeah.
And as long as it doesn't ruin the aquifer, because obviously our number one asset in this town is the aquifer. We all want clean drinking water and we don't want to ruin that. So do all the testing, figure out if we can build that much parkade right there.
There you go. We solved that problem. Parking problem solved. Just build a parkade worth a few, tens of millions of dollars on prime real estate in Lower Gibsons, and no more parking problem. The solution is going to be ugly, I think, whatever it is. Like whether it's a parkade or whether it's a shuttle or something, it's a bunch of imperfect solutions to the problem. But even though you don't like maybe what the answer to the problem is, you still have to fix it.
But when you go anywhere, parking is a frustration. And so if you drive to Lower Gibsons now and you see there's a big parkade right there, big public peep sign, go there, you're going to be happy. You're going to go there, you're going to hang out, you're going to spend money in all those little businesses in Lower Gibsons. You're going to walk the seawalk. It's going to be a totally vibrant little Gibsons like you want it to be. Being a realtor, I really realize the importance of parking. I'm working with a few clients right now, and they want to afford a townhouse. They want to buy a townhouse, but they're looking at a townhouse, but that one only has one assigned parking stall. And it's a couple. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse, but that couple will not buy that townhouse. But they would pay $40,000 more if there was an extra stall. Mm-hmm. Like the value is there, and people will pay it, and that's what people need. And so that's the one couple. And the other couple, they actually do have 2 parking stalls they can get with that townhouse, but they need a third one because they have their adult kid working with them, staying with them. So it's a 2-bedroom and a den and a 2-bathroom. So that'll work for them. That'll work for the 3 adults. So then you could say, oh, we'll go get a house. Well, no, we're talking about affordability here.
It's a big jump.
We're talking about people who can live here, who can be part of the workforce. And so, adult kid has to live with mom and dad, or in a lot of cases.
It's all part of a bigger puzzle, right? Like we could say, that your clients should go buy a house, right? There's enough people. But that's kind of the whole idea of what we're trying to do here is that the house is expensive. So let's make smaller units that we can leverage the density in the neighborhoods, make them cheaper. The people that can't afford the house, they still have the same responsibilities, the jobs and the everything else that they need to get them around with the vehicles. So you can't really say, oh, well, you should be thankful that we've given you a place to live that's more affordable. Now get rid of your cars.
Yeah.
And not say, here's really good transit or here's a really good solution for why you won't miss the car. Mm-hmm. And right now you would miss a car in Gibsons or anywhere on the Sunshine Coast, really.
So what we don't want to turn into is a town that has these little tower of developments that they're like 500 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condos that an investor buys because no person wants to call that size of a home with not enough parking and say, oh, that's where I live. So investors buy this, but they're not ideal for rentals, or investors think they will be rentals, but then they're just short term. They're not long term. You're just always going to have a turnaround
every
of
6
people
months or every year, somebody's going to leave that unit.
Because it won't work for them.
Yeah.
And so, you want, if you want a couple renting a 1-bedroom, then they each need a vehicle. So we are halfway between Upper and Lower Gibsons, and there's Gibsons Way along Island View Lanes, and we've lost a lot of parking along the street. Well, it is kind of like the main thoroughfare. I mean, Gibsons Way is kind of a little bit of a highway, but then they put biking lanes along the way there. And so no more parking along that way. So all these people that maybe had an extra vehicle and could park along Gibsons Way can't. And then, where do we park? Up on Hillcrest. So we walk a block away, around a block down and a block up So that, yeah, and it's just not safe. If you got like a young girl walking home at night and then to walk a block and a half to get to her home, we can't be having that. But yeah, and so then that gets into biking lanes, because even on Venture Way, there's a whole biking lane that got put there, and we lost all the street parking along there. So you go to Blackfish Pub, which is full and doing good and doing busy, but then you got nowhere to park. I don't want to start dissing the biking lanes, but we have to think about those two, where we're putting them and how much we're giving up parking. And if we're giving up parking for biking lanes, then where are we putting that parking?
I think it's really good to be aspirational with density, with biking lanes and all the rest, but there is the reality of the situation that you're dealing with. And it's the demand for parking is there, whether you forgive it or you put a bike lane in and remove street parking or whatever it is. But all that happens then is when people go to the Blackfish, they park at the A&W, right, and go across the street. And if A&W eventually, within their rights, gets mad and says, no, you can't do that, then like, okay, now you'll park across the street at the credit union, right? No, well, you're not going to be allowed to park there. Like, just not allowing parking doesn't mean you don't need parking. And yeah, the density is good. The bike lanes are great. All of those things are well and good, but we just can't pretend that we don't need parking, because as you've pointed out, we are a rural community and we're really reliant on vehicles to do everything.
Oh, yeah. And even tourists coming over, you can't really let a tourist say, oh, just walk on. Like, very few can do that, because we're, rural Sunshine Coast. If you want to travel a little bit, check out here, check out there, you need a vehicle. And there's not like there's a car share at the ferry. Maybe they want to put one. Maybe there's going to be one, but one car.
Right.
And then the bus is like every 2 hours or whatever. So you're not really being, so yeah, tourists coming over are going to have a vehicle. And tourists bring in money. So we want to be okay with that.
Well, and even on the other side, if somebody's holidaying and they're going to go to Horseshoe Bay to catch the ferry, like you're driving probably to Horseshoe Bay to catch the ferry, right? It's kind of, relatively in the middle of nowhere compared to the rest of the Lower Mainland. So you expect people to drive to that ferry terminal. There's no parking at that ferry terminal to tell people to leave your car there and walk on.
Well, there's a little bit, but I think
not
it gets
enough
full.
to match what we get in the summertime, right? Yeah. There is literally parking there, but there is not enough parking for it down there.
Yeah.
And so, that no matter how you cut it, there needs to be more parking.
So if you watch this and you have your own parking comments, which I'm sure you do if you live in Gibsons, feel free to comment and give us your thoughts on what your experience with parking is. Or maybe your town has found a very elegant solution and you can share that with us. Thanks for watching.
Sunshine, sunshine. I think I found it now. What I've been looking for. Isn't it beautiful? It's got my head all up in the clouds. I think